Hi, my name is William Schaeffer, and we have a special book report today. Annual Editions, Anthropology 83-84 by the Dushkin Publishing Group. These annual editions are reprints of articles in the subject area for college students as a supplementary reading to the courses they're taking. And they're available in a lot of subjects: sociology, psychology, this was anthropology. And they're fascinating. And they're all short, concise articles that are well written and highlight a specific point. And they publish these annual editions every year. And this one is from 83-84. And I actually got it about that time and have had this particular book in my library in packing crates in storage the whole time. And I was happy to find this because it has an article that is no longer a part of the annual editions, which I found to be fascinating and fundamental to my worldview or my opinion. And I believe it's factual, and I'm going to share it with you. Anyway, every year you can get these annual editions, and I have a number of editions that I bought, and I enjoy reading. And there's a lot of other good articles, but we're going to concentrate on this one. One good article, and here's just a list of some of the titles that they have. And this is from 30 years ago. Doing Field Work Among the Yanamamo, and Napoleon A. Chagon. And he wrote the definitive book that is today somewhat controversial. Doctor, Lawyer, Indian Chief, Eating Christmas in the Kalahari. And this again, fascinating article, The Mountain People by Colin M. Turnbull. And I have actually read the book, both The Mountain People and The Forest People, and they're fascinating books. This one is about the Ik tribe in northern Uganda, living on the reservation system, and it's chilling in the way their social relations or their society has been reduced or changed to what we consider to be not superstitious or not sentimental at all. And it's very stark, the description that the author portrays of that. Man at the Mercy of Language by Peter Farb. This is about how the words form the concepts that we form our understanding of the world. Shakespeare in the Bush. They still reprint those. And a lot of these articles are still reprinted, and some are new. And that's why it's great to go to a used bookstore and buy some of these reprints, because the science is still basically good. It's better than superstition or hocus pocus. But here's the one that really struck me. Murders in Eden by Marvin Harris. And they no longer reprint this one, but it's from Cannibals and Kings, Origins of Culture, Vintage Books, Random House, and that would be 1977. But the basic, and then there's some other articles, Potlatch, the practice of giving in the traditional Native American cultures of the Seattle Pacific, where your wealth was established, or your status in society is established not by how much you possess, not by how much you hoard, but how much you give away. And the more you give away, the more status you have in society, and the more you are regarded. And that's almost the opposite of the way we look at wealth and status. And a lot of these are fascinating. They're fascinating, and they're all short articles. But let's get to this one, Murders in Eden, because that's really the one I've been looking for. In a fascinating 4-5-page article, we're told that we have civilization because it presents a better life for us. And we are told that cities arose because the opportunities that cities presented. But when scientists started looking at the fossil record, that was not really shared, because in the fossil record, if you look at the first cities 5,000 or 7,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent in the Mideast, the people that live in the cities have a shorter life, a more violent life, and more illness than the hunter-gatherers who live in the countryside in a more traditional nomadic way of life. This seems to run absolutely contrary to expectation. So you can tell from the skeletons. Disease leaves marks in the bones, so you can see if the person has had certain diseases, not to mention if it's a normal or stunted growth. You can see injuries in the bones, and you can see malnutrition and health in the bones. So these things, like a forensic scientist, you can analyze these skeletons. And when people started living in cities, they had a shorter life. 7,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers lived to their 80s. And a typical lifespan was 80 years long, or into the 80s. That was a normal, healthful, long lifespan. And the people in the city tended to have shorter lives, more disease, and more injury, and a more limited diet. And this runs contrary to what we've been told. City life was not a better way of life. It was an inferior way of life for health and happiness. That cities arose because they could then muster or raise a larger standing army to protect natural resources. So they arose in natural parts of the environment near a water source or agriculture source or hunting or trees or a forest that was very desirable, and they could, by being a city and live concentrated, eliminate all other competition for those natural resources. And that's why cities arose, because they could raise a more effective and larger standing army in a shorter period of time. Or in the original days, a larger band of bandits, a larger group of bandits. And that's it. And as from the fossil record, from the archaeological record, as civilization progressed, the average lifespan became shorter. And in Roman times, the lifespan of a man was only about 40 years long, and of a woman 45. And that was the shortest lifespan. 2,000 years ago, at the height of the Roman Empire, humans had the worst health and the shortest lifespan in their history. And since that time, the lifespan has slowly lengthened. And then over the past 150 years, with the increase in understanding of medicine and nutrition and more technology, our lifespan has gotten longer. But the original birthright of all humankind is to live into your 80s, at least. And from the fossil record, the hunter-gatherers, the nomads, that lived at the same time in nearly the same location as the city folk did, had a more healthy life and a longer life than people that lived in the cities. But nevertheless, these annual editions, and specifically the annual editions in Anthropology and Sociology, and the annual edition that was 83-84, I highly recommend. The articles are extremely well written, they're insightful, they're educational, and they're short enough that you can read them in a reasonable amount of time and get a lot of interesting information and eye-opening insight into the way the world works. Therefore, I highly recommend annual editions, and in particular, Anthropology 83, 84, and the essay Murders in Eden by Marvin Harris. Thank you, and leave your comments below.